Hey kids, it's Mrs. Davis and we are going to be working on some writing today. It's a writing workshop day. I love writing. You all know that, and I have missed our time together. I'm going to start today reading a story to you because I always think it's wise to listen to other authors and get some ideas for writing and illustrating. I have selected a book by Dr. Seuss. It's called The Tooth Book. This is one I picked up early in March, but I wasn't able to read it to you. Now, this book by Dr. Seuss has lots of rhyming words. However, it doesn't have those zany characters and those crazy machines, and it doesn't have a lot of silly words in it because Dr. Seuss wrote this book and someone else illustrated it. He didn't even use his Dr. Seuss name. If you look closely, this is the name that he used, and I read up on this that he used this name if he wrote a book but someone else illustrated it. Now, you know I love Dr. Seuss, and he is definitely an author that's very entertaining. However, I told you this when we studied him, that he definitely sneaks in a hidden message sometimes. You have to think about it. He definitely wants us to think about something when we're reading his stories. So I hope you enjoy this book, The Tooth Book by Dr. Seuss. I must get on my glasses for this one. Teeth. You find them everywhere, on mountaintops and in the air. And if you care to poke around, you'll even find them underground. You'll find them east, west, north, and south. You'll find them in a lion's mouth. Don't try that one at home. I heard some rhyming words. I definitely heard south and mouth. They come in handy when you chew, says Mr. Donald Driscoll Drew. That's why my family grew a few. Oh, there's lots on that page. Chew, drew, few, grew. Teeth come in handy when you speak, says news broadcaster Quincy Queek. Without my teeth, I'd talk like ducks and only broadcast quacks and clucks. He's got some good looking teeth. Clams have no teeth, says Pam the clam. I cannot eat hot dogs or ham. No teeth at all, says Pam the clam. I cannot eat roast leg of lamb or peanuts, pizzas, popcorn, Spam. Not even huckleberry jam. I have no teeth, says Hilda Hen, but women do, and so do men. So I have happy news for you. You will grow 2 sets. Set 1, set 2. Ooh, that reminds me of thing 1, thing 2. You will lose set number 1, and when you do, it's not much fun. He's got a worried look on his face. But then you'll grow set number 2, 32 teeth, and all brand new. 16 downstairs and 16 more upstairs on the upper floor. And when you get your second set, that's all the teeth you'll ever get. Sounds like some good information in this very entertaining book. So, don't chew down trees like beavers do. If you try, you'll lose set number 2. That's good advice. Don't gobble junk like Billy Billings. They say his teeth have 50 fillings. Yikes. That's good advice too. They sure are handy when you smile. So keep your teeth around a while. Oh, I really like that book. I did hear a lot of rhyming words. It was very entertaining and easy to read, as a lot of Dr. Seuss books are. And I know you heard some good information, like how many teeth you're going to have. You're going to get 2 sets of teeth, and you should take care of your teeth. So I love when authors like Dr. Seuss entertain us and give us some good information at the same time. Now I'm going to be doing some writing, and I haven't been doing a lot of writing. If you're like me, we've had a lot of changes, and I really do too miss our time of writing together at Writing Workshop. Now you should be writing at home some. I know some of you are working in your writer's notebooks, and that's totally great. I brought this one home from the school. Remember my story about Bentley? If you're using your writer's notebook, that's fine. Just make sure you put the date when you're writing, and of course stay on your same topic until you finish the story and complete it, and draw and color the illustrations to match. I like this book too because the lines are already there for you. And before we left for break, we were working on, some of us were actually writing books. A lot of us, many of us, were actually writing books. And we were working on one together. Remember this one? Hank and Cosmos and the Fun Snow Day. My dog's barking. He remembers the story too, maybe. He's answering the question. This was a really awesome book that we were writing. Now, it's been a while since we worked together. And so let me just remind you, if you are writing a book at home, you can just get some plain paper. This is copy paper. You can pull the sheets and staple the binding, or you can just wait till the end when you're finished with your book. You're always going to start with a cover and a title. And then, of course, you know on this one that I had a dedication page. Some authors do that. Remember, this was dedicated to everyone who loves snow and outer space. Now, since our break, I have been working in this. I've been coloring. I colored my solar system. Just remember, too, that if you're thinking about writing a story, writing a whole book, as good authors do, you have to make your plan first. So remember, I started with my plan. Let me just pull this down from my chart here. I sketched out a little plan for writing, and all good writers should do this. Think about who you want in your story. Think about when your story is going to take place. Think about the setting. Where are your characters going to be? Is the setting going to change over time? And then, will your main character, what problem will your character have? And how did it get solved? So those are some things to plan out. Remember for this one that I put Hank, he was the boy. The season was winter. They were going to be outside in the neighborhood. And that Cosmos, the space alien, had never been able to play in snow. And so he was going to come to Earth, and Hank was going to teach him all about how to play in the snow. And then, of course, I have to have my what. A good story has to have details. So I started thinking about things that happen in the season of winter, fun things that kids can do. And of course, if I'm going to sketch out a story about having fun, I've got to make a list of things that the characters can do. And I listed snowball fight, build a fort, frozen breath, sledding, building a snowman, snow angels, eating warm food, drinking hot cocoa. So those were just a few of the ideas that I had, and I listed them down, and I was even checking them off as we wrote about those in the book, keeping track of the details that I had used so I know what I have left that I can still pull from this ideal sheet that I have. Now, when you're working with a plan sheet, you have to be flexible. So you can add things to this, or you can subtract things and not include them. But it's always wise to make a plan. Now I'm going to read today's work that we're working on. I'm going to actually read the whole story, since it's been a really long time since we've been together in writing workshop. And it's always wise, if you're writing, to go back and reread and see what you've already put in. You might want to make some changes. You might want to add some things. You don't want to re-say what you've already said. So I'm going to read what we wrote, and that's going to be the fill of what we're going to do today together. I'm going to reread, and then I'm going to give you some direction on things I want you to do at home with Writer's Workshop. So here we go. And since I've been home, I have been not only working on this book and putting it together and organizing it, I have been doing my coloring. So that's been one addition I've done. One cold and snowy night, Hank was gazing out his window when suddenly a bright light appeared in the sky. The light landed in his backyard. Thud. Hank was surprised. What could it be? And remember, we're using words like gazing instead of just looking, because we want to use interesting words. You can use words that are bubbled in to show sounds and make the text or print look interesting. And since I have a question in here, I'm using the correct punctuation. I'm using a question mark. And of course, in this space, I'm having to draw my own lines. So remember how we did this? I would write a sentence and then draw a line. And of course, if I forgot, Hunter was always there to remind me. Hank was curious, so he put on his winter gear and he snuck outside. He wanted to check out the situation. And since we have been on our break, I have colored this page. I tried to tweak up my pictures too. Hank could not believe his eyes. I want you to take a look at the word believe. It's not spelled correctly, but when we work in our writing, whatever piece we're working on, you can use your sound spelling. If you don't know how to spell a word, just sound it out. Use the correct beginning, middle, and ending sounds. So when you go back and reread it, you'll remember what that word says. There in front of him was a creature from outer space. Crazy. I used some bubble letters there. The creature smiled and waved. So Hank waved back and said, hello. Cosmos said, Nanu, Nanu. And they shook hands. And remember, I included some quotation marks. Let me get close. Quotation marks are what authors use to let you know what characters are saying, because in a book, you can't see their mouths moving. In this way, the author can let you know who's talking and what they're saying. Cosmos told Hank that he came to Earth to explore the white stuff falling in the atmosphere. And I remember clearly that Carson helped us out, because he said, no, Cosmos was a space alien. He would know the word snow. So we just said the white stuff. So that was a good idea on his part. Suddenly, Hank had an amazing idea. And remember, I've got that thinking bubble. Cosmos would stay the night and he would show him snow play. But first, he had to think of a way to sneak Cosmos inside without his parents noticing. Now, this is a page that I haven't colored yet, but I want us to take a close look at. Remember, I don't know if you can notice that when we were working on this, when Cosmos had his vehicle to disappear and he disappeared and became invisible, Eva reminded us, she said, why don't we try to erase some of that? And so we tried to make it look kind of like it was disappearing. That was another good idea. Cosmos hid his spacecraft behind the barn. Zap. The ship was invisible, and zap, Cosmos was too. They quietly tiptoed inside. Cosmos had never seen a bed before. However, he trusted Hank, who told him to lay down and rest. Soon the two friends were fast asleep. And this one I had sectioned into 3 parts so that we could get all of these details into illustration form. The next morning, the two friends woke up bright and early for a snow adventure. Hank dashed, instead of ran, he dashed downstairs and wolfed down his breakfast. Cosmos teleported himself to his ship and slurped his green space goo. And I used those kind of motions to show that he was dashing. After breakfast, the two friends met back in Hank's room and geared up to keep warm in the snow. Cosmos was so covered up that they both walked right past Mom without her even realizing that Hank was playing with an alien. I think that part's funny. Now the two were headed for fun. Cosmos was happy but unsure about what was going to happen. As they traveled through the fluffy white stuff, Cosmos screamed. This was a funny part we put in. "What is a fog doing around my face? Help!" Hank assured him everything was just fine. It's only frozen words. Remember, we got that from one of our stories when we were reading about winter. They called your frozen breath frozen words, said Hank. Cosmos smiled and spoke more frozen words. "This is out of this world." I don't know really how a space alien would sound, but to me, that's how they would sound. Hank grabbed his sled from the barn, and the two raced over to Gut Flop Hill for some sledding fun. Remember, we talked about your gut being your stomach, and when you go down in a roller coaster or downhill in a sled, sometimes your stomach does flip-flops or your gut does flip-flops. Hank's sled was not big enough for both of them, so Hank slid down first. Next, Cosmos zoomed down in a blaze. Remember to use those good details and exciting, interesting words. Suddenly, Cosmos disappeared. When he returned, he had the lid to his spacecraft. Now they could go down together. So we've got Gut Flop Hill, the sled, how he disappeared, and then I did the same little erasing, and then there's his dome-shaped lid. Now this was the last page that we wrote together, and I haven't illustrated. That's what I'm going to work on when we are done here with this session. I'm going to spend some time illustrating. After the two friends had went down the hill several times, they decided to do something else. That's where I'm going to go back to my list. Hank loved to throw snowballs, so he grabbed Cosmos by his alien hand and off they raced. They ran to a field with lots of open space. Hank showed Cosmos how to scoop up snow and form a sphere. You know, we could have said form a ball, but how boring is that? A sphere is the shape of a snowball. Then he let the ball fly out of his hand. Whack! It hit Cosmos right in the middle of his gut. Cosmos fell over and laid very still. That was page 10. I wanted you to notice on this one that I did write the word fly, but I separated the letters in the word fly, and I put some motion marks like, you know, the word is moving. Again, you can play around with your words and print and make them look interesting. So what I'm going to be working on today when I'm working on my writing, if I ask you to write, I'm going to spend some time writing and illustrating too, because I actually love to do it. And I'm going to finish this story for sure. I'm going to spend time illustrating, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use the whole page, and I'm going to put Hank, and then I'm going to put Cosmos, and maybe have the a pile of snowballs for each of them, and then have some snowballs going through the air. I'm not sure if I'm going to do one picture, or maybe I'm going to split my illustrating box up here and put where they're throwing snowballs here, and then maybe Cosmos is laying down, you know, playing like he's hurt, but he's really not. I think we had talked about that, that he's kind of faking Hank out. So I'm not exactly sure. What do you think I should do? I'm going to think about that. What would you do if it was you? All right, now I'm going to spend some time illustrating, and I want you to work on your writing. And I just want to give you a few reminders as you're writing today. Of course, you're going to need your tools to help you write. Don't forget to grab your crayons and your pencil with an eraser. Those things are important. And whatever you're working on, if you're working on your writer's notebook or you're working on a book, you've got to do, let me grab my list. I was able to go to the school and get a whiteboard. Now this is a really heavy whiteboard. So let's see if I can pull it up here. I'm going to figure out how I can post this in my little workshop room here. Writing workshop tips. Number 1, make your plan. Even if you're in the middle of working on a writing, think about what you want to write before you start. Write and illustrate for 15 minutes. If you have a timer at home or you have some way to keep track of time, I want you to think about working for at least 15 minutes. That's going to give you a good solid time to just think and write, maybe fix or edit some things, illustrate color. Write neatly, and don't forget to space in between each word. And this is a biggie. Write at least 5 sentences. Now, when you're making a story, you're probably going to have way more than 5 sentences. But at least try to generate 5 sentences on your topic. You want a beginning sentence, you want some middle parts, and then you want a closure to your writing. And that will make a good solid piece of writing for you. And then you should capitalize and put some kind of ending mark at the end of each sentence. Really work on capitalizing at the start. That means using a uppercase letter at the beginning of each sentence. And then of course, if you are writing a special name, you would use a capital letter also. So those are just some tips for writing today. Let me put this big heavy board down. Here are my punctuation marks. If you are writing a sentence that tells, period, dot. If you're telling with a lot of feeling, you're going to use your exclamation. And then if you're putting a question in your writing, you're going to use a question mark. So, all right, writers, you've got some work to do on your own. You're going to set your timer and you're going to work on writing for at least 15 minutes. And then, of course, I want you to upload some pictures for me. You can put those in your email or on Blooms. And then I want to give you something else to do too. So you know how I left off with Cosmos was laying down, kind of faking Hank out. He had fallen down. So what I want to ask you is, I'm going to move forward in our next session of writing workshop, and I'm going to write my next page, page 11. How about you guys send me some of your ideas? What should happen next? Should Hank and Cosmos go ice skating? Or should they build a snowman? Or should they make snow angels? So I want you guys to help me. Send me your thoughts. What should the 2 characters do next as we go forward and write so that I can complete Hank and Cosmos and the fun snow day? All right, writers and illustrators, on our next session, we will go forward with this story. So get busy and have fun writing and sketching. All right, until our next session, have a good one.